What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. I thought I'd go live. For maybe 30 minutes or so with this Seth Rollins, Riddle, postponement, cancellation, what have you. It's an interesting story, so I thought I'd go live, try something a little bit different this evening. Of course, SummerSlam's this weekend, this coming Saturday, and to be honest, one of the matches I really was looking forward to the most was Seth Rollins versus Riddle. Of course, a match we didn't actually think we were probably going to see, given their history, given their heat a couple of years ago. When Riddle first came up to the main roster, Seth Rollins was like, I'm never working with this guy. I'm not going to be working against this guy. That's not going to happen. And it felt like we'd finally got over that bridge, and they'd gotten to a point where they were happy and they were going to be competing. And again, given the SummerSlam card is somewhat or very underwhelming this year, and it's a stadium show, it felt like actually, well, Seth Rollins versus Riddle, that's a match I can get behind. That's a match I'm excited to see. That's a match that possibly is going to be the match of the night. I know people are talking about the main event, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, last man standing. I know people are talking about that and the lack of interest really they have, considering we've seen it before, but no doubt it'll still be a big match. It'll still be a good match, a fun match. We know the outcome. We know the outcome is going to be basically Roman Reigns retains. But I was really looking forward to Seth Rollins versus Riddle, but we ain't seeing it. We are not going to see it this coming weekend at SummerSlam. The match is off. Well, it has been postponed, and it had people worried for a hot second there when it comes to an injury possibly to Riddle, but don't be too worried because the injury, like pro wrestling, is all kayfabe, and it's all changed with WWE creatively. So we're going to talk about it here. If you are just coming in, be sure to smash a like on the like button, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. The watch-alongs are returning. Yes, this coming Saturday, I will be live throughout the night doing a SummerSlam watch-along and a SummerSlam post-show. As I mentioned, the SummerSlam or the watch-alongs are returning. I'm also thinking, if it's what you guys want to see, of course, but I am also thinking of doing a Ric Flair watch-along. Ric Flair's final match, maybe, is this weekend from Nashville, Tennessee. And I am thinking about doing a Ric Flair watch-along and possibly post-show as well. I feel like I have to. That just feels like just such... Well, I laugh, but you never know. It feels like such a big event, a historic event, an event certainly that people are going to be talking about. I feel like I kind of have to do that one. So I'm thinking of doing that as well. So we've got a busy weekend ahead, folks. So now's the time to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Smash a like on the like button. But this Seth Rollins versus Riddle match postponed, as I mentioned. WWE announced on the bump today, this is what they said, quote, breaking. Seth Rollins injured Riddle with a vicious attack on Raw that resulted in a brachial plexus injury, bracket a stinger. Riddle is medically disqualified until full strength returns. Due to this injury, Riddle versus Rollins at SummerSlam has been postponed. Now, when this first came out, when this was first announced, it had a lot of people, rightfully so, worried, thinking, no, the injury bug has hit not just WWE, but pro wrestling really badly this summer. Of all of these names going down with injury, especially Seth Rollins' opponents, right? Cody Rhodes being one. Now Riddle injured, Randy Orton injured. What a bad time for WWE. But don't be too worried because Riddle is not injured. It's all a work. Fightful Select Sean Ross Sapp reported in the last hour or so that Riddle and Seth Rollins is off at SummerSlam, but Fightful Select is reporting that they have learned a little bit more about the process behind this announcement. As I mentioned, WWE announced today that the match would not be taking place, citing an injury to Riddle. However, Sean Ross Sapp is reporting the injury is kayfabe, and there are plans to do the match down the line, but not at SummerSlam this weekend. Those that Fightful have spoken to claim it was due to, quote, creative adjustments. Now, what those creative adjustments are, we don't know. But the injury is not real. It's a work. Riddle is fine, but the match is not happening this Saturday. Creative adjustments have been made, and the match has been postponed. Now, they are also reporting that talent involved, being Riddle and Seth Rollins, were informed Monday, and the working plan was to have the match take place at another stadium show, that being Clash at the Castle in Wales in September. However, of course, with the ever-changing WWE landscape, it's quite possible that that isn't final. So we might never see Seth Rollins versus Riddle. That match might not happen at all. The plan is to have it at Clash at the Castle, but plans change, pal. As of now, Seth Rollins is still expected to travel to Nashville for SummerSlam weekend and was scheduled for media obligations scheduled for Friday. They haven't heard if those plans have changed. So that's an interesting part in it. So there's a lot of different stages to this one, right? There's first the announcement that the match is off, which leads to worry. People going, what? The match off? What does that mean? Injury? Riddle? Subsequently, you then get the report, which Fightful Select say, no, the match is off, but it is postponed. The plan is to have a clash at the castle, and Riddle is not injured. It's work. It's kayfabe. But the latest development comes from Seth Rollins himself, Seth freaking Rollins himself, because he has tweeted a really fascinating tweet. This is what he's had to say, quote, "For anyone who purchased a ticket to SummerSlam hoping to see me in action, I apologize. I did everything I could over the last 6 months to earn my spot on this show, but some things are out of my control. Thank you for always singing my song. They'll hear you someday." Now that is interesting. That is very, very interesting. What are these creative adjustments? When they're saying creative adjustments, it seems to me that Seth Rollins will be working this Saturday. It seems to me that Seth Rollins will have a match at SummerSlam. The issue is we don't know who he's going to be facing. So just like at WrestleMania, it would appear Seth Rollins is without an opponent, or Seth Rollins rather has a mystery opponent. Now, when I heard the Fightful report, first of all, again, you have to kind of look at this chronologically. When the first report came out, it was off due to an injury. I went, oh no, another injury, that sucks. You know, Riddle, it's a big match for him. Again, it's a match I'm looking forward to. It's a match I'm excited about. Really? Another match off? Oh, that sucks. That's bad for everyone involved. When I heard it was a work and it was kayfabe, I went, that's weird, because let's face it again, WWE's roster is very bleak right now, and they're lacking a lot of stars. You're telling me you're willing to take off two of the biggest stars you have on the roster right now, one of the better matches of the show, arguably the match that could steal the show. You're happy to take that off a card like SummerSlam inside of a stadium. You're happy to do that to the talent to damage their morale. You're happy to pull that match. That seems very odd. Now, for Seth Rollins' tweet, initially you could look at it going, oh, is he being serious? Is he genuinely upset? Because why wouldn't he? If this were real, if this were a shoot, of course Seth Rollins would be upset. Why wouldn't he be upset? It's SummerSlam. It's one of the biggest paydays of the year. There's the Saudi shows, which they make the most money on, Talent and WWE. There's WrestleMania. And then there's SummerSlam in terms of your payoff, in terms of the money you can make, in terms of the revenue that WWE makes, in terms of the attendance. That's how the priority lists work. And you're telling me Seth Rollins, one of the biggest stars in WWE, you're going to take him off the show? You're going to take one of the marquee matches off the show? That seems very strange. That seems very odd, especially with the work that Seth Rollins has done from WrestleMania to now. The work he did building up that WrestleMania match against Cody Rhodes when Cody Rhodes was the mystery opponent. The matches he had with Cody Rhodes, despite Cody Rhodes beating him 3 times, Seth Rollins has done and continues to do some of the best work in all of WWE right now. You're telling me you're going to pull that match? I don't buy it. I think we could see some creative adjustments, and those creative adjustments could include a mystery opponent, could possibly have a Cody Rhodes return. Improbable as it may seem, you never know. You really never know. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. It could lead to Seth Rollins versus Goldberg. Lord, I hope not. I really hope that's not the case. It could lead, possibly, just possibly, to Seth Rollins being involved in the Undisputed Universal Championship match this coming Saturday. We did see Seth Rollins go face-to-face with Roman Reigns on Monday Night Raw, did we not? They have teased that several times. There really hasn't been any follow-up from when you had the match with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble, which, by the way, Seth Rollins won by disqualification. They haven't followed that up. Could possibly they shift Seth Rollins into the Undisputed Universal Championship picture? Could they say, under Triple H, under this new regime, wait a minute, I know we've put all of this time building up Roman Reigns as the champion, but we've got a main event between 2 part-time guys here that aren't going to be around after SummerSlam. Yes, Roman Reigns is booked for the Clash at the Castle show. Yes, the plan is to have Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, but we also know that Roman Reigns is on a part-time schedule right now. So is Brock Lesnar. Shouldn't the Undisputed Universal Champion, or at the very least the WWE Champion, be a guy that's on Raw every single week? Possibly, just possibly, Triple H, as the new creative head of WWE, has decided to pivot in a different direction. That's what this screams to me. This screams Triple H going, you know what? I think we're going to go in a different direction. You know what? The plan was to have Riddle versus Seth Rollins, and make no mistake, and this is my point, make no mistake here, Triple H is no fool. And Triple H would know, looking at this match, he'd go, Rollins versus Riddle is a proper match. Rollins versus Riddle is a match that can steal the show. Triple H likes wrestling. And Triple H wouldn't just want to randomly pull a match for no reason that he knows could absolutely add to a show. And make no mistake, all eyes are on Triple H right now. You don't think if SummerSlam's a terrible show this weekend, eyebrows aren't being raised and people aren't saying, oh, the first pay-per-view of the Triple H regime, that didn't go very well, did it? What's going to happen with Triple H going forward? I don't know about this creative. Maybe Raw was just good on Monday because people were excited. It was the first post-Vince Raw. But also, it was Madison Square Garden. It was the go-home show. I don't know about this. If SummerSlam sucks, people talk. People will talk this weekend going, Triple H has got his work cut out for him. Triple H has got a lot of work to do. So Triple H knows that, and he wouldn't, again, pull Seth Rollins versus Riddle for no reason. He wouldn't pull that match, one of the better matches on the show, for no reason. He would say, I've got something big planned. I've got something cooking. Now, what that is, we don't know. Again, it could be, is it going to be a Cody Rhodes return? That feels way too early for me, considering he tore his pec just before Hell in a Cell, which was last month, the early stages of last month. Considering how bad that injury looked, I'd be flabbergasted, absolutely flabbergasted. I don't see why we would go to a Rollins versus Goldberg scenario. That just is, and again, I don't know why Triple H would go down that route. As someone, again, who's, you know, who is, if you look at his creative for NXT, is all about the wrestling. You understand star power, certainly, but he's all about great matches and in-ring work. I don't see why he would just pull Riddle to put Goldberg in. That seems bizarre. I don't expect that to happen. People talking about The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. I don't know. I honestly, anything is possible when it comes to returns now. Under Vince McMahon, I'd have said no way. Under Triple H, absolutely it's possible. And Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins, of course, have history. They had one of the worst Hell in a Cell matches in history at Hell in a Cell in 2019. But The Fiend also defeated Seth Rollins to become the Universal Champion a month later at Crown Jewel that year in Saudi Arabia as well. So, I mean, that could happen, I guess. Anything is possible. I think it's very unlikely. We haven't really heard those rumors. But again, Triple H is not only back in the terms of in the creative helm, he's also in charge of talent relations. He's the guy that's hiring and firing people at the moment as well. Who's to say he doesn't sort out a deal for Bray Wyatt? I've seen a lot of people saying Johnny Gargano. That is not impossible. Johnny Gargano is interesting. Again, you would say, well, in terms of, and this is where you have to be, I guess, somewhat cautious. In terms of star power, in terms of big moments, I understand it's about making new stars, but if you looked at it from a casual fan's point of view, and I know people would say, well, Triple H isn't looking at it from a casual fan's point of view. His mindset is different to Vince McMahon. But if you pulled Riddle to put Johnny Gargano in there, is that really the right move when you think about it? Make no mistake, Johnny Gargano versus Seth Rollins would be a great match. But in terms of getting people talking, in terms of a match that has mass appeal, is that really the right move, do you think? Rollins versus Gargano? It's a great match to have, and it's a feud I'd love to see on WWE television, and I think Johnny Gargano could return to WWE. But in terms of a guy that Riddle, who they've invested a ton of TV time in over the course of the last 2 years, a guy that's over, one of the top merch sellers, was competing for the Universal Championship just a few weeks ago on SmackDown. You would pull him to put Johnny Gargano in that match? Again, that to me doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly. It would have to be a name that is bigger than Riddle. And at the moment, how many names are out there in WWE under contract that are bigger than Riddle? How many free agents are out there that are bigger than Riddle? Not a ton. I mean, again, there are names. You're talking your Bray Wyatts. But Johnny Gargano would be a bit odd for me. Now, it'd be different if Seth Rollins, and again, this is Wednesday at this point, so Seth Rollins could very well show up at SmackDown on Friday, and that's maybe why we have to be somewhat cautious about this. They've said creative adjustments. There's still time. So certainly there could be a situation where Seth Rollins shows up on SmackDown and says, Riddle's injured, but I'm going to be doing something else at the weekend. I'm still going to show up, and like he said in his tweet there, that you can't silence me. I'm going to have a match at SummerSlam. And maybe that's what they pivot to. Maybe SmackDown, Rollins comes out and says, I did it at WrestleMania. I'll do it again this Saturday at SummerSlam. I'm going to be facing off against a mystery opponent. Or maybe they just recycle the storyline that they did with Vince McMahon and Seth Rollins for WrestleMania. Maybe we see this time, instead of Rollins knocking on the door in the office of Vince McMahon, maybe this time Seth Rollins knocks on the door of Triple H. People have been talking about Triple H. We know that WWE is not afraid of looking at what the internet says anymore. Certainly Triple H isn't. Maybe they try and break the fourth wall on Friday. Rollins goes backstage, knocks on the door of Triple H, who's sitting there, and he says, I don't care if this is a new era. I don't care if this is a new regime. I deserve to be on SummerSlam because I'm Seth freaking Rollins. And Triple H says, you know what? You're right. Absolutely, you deserve to be on SummerSlam. And you know what? You will face an opponent. But just like WrestleMania, you don't know who that opponent is going to be. We're not going to tell you who that opponent is until you get in the ring. Once you get in the ring and the bell rings, you will then find out who your opponent is. Maybe they just completely do what they did at WrestleMania, swap out Vince McMahon for Triple H. And in this time it's Triple H's opponent. It's at WrestleMania, it was an opponent of Mr. McMahon's choosing. This time at SummerSlam, it's an opponent of Triple H's choosing. And that is how you build hype. That is how you build suspense. That is how you get people talking about a show that not really a lot of people are talking about right now. Maybe that's the way to do it. And to me, as I say that out loud, that makes sense. That to me is logical. That to me builds suspense. Now, of course, you have to deliver on that promise, and who they would deliver, I don't know. That is somehow you would be able to deliver a Johnny Gargano, maybe. Again, I would say Riddle's not actually injured. He's kayfabe. So again, you would say, well, star power, but I guess the suspense, surprise appearance, that gets people talking, that gets people tuning in. People would be interested in that, I guess. That's how you could do that. Maybe that's the direction that they'll go in. But the more I think about it, again, I don't think it's a bad thing whatsoever to basically repeat and recycle the story that they did for WrestleMania. Instead of it being an opponent of Vince McMahon's choosing, it's now just an opponent of Triple H's choosing. That to me works. That to me does make sense. Whether or not WWE would go down that route, I just think it would be a travesty. I think it would be a crime if you've got SummerSlam, one of the biggest shows of the year, a stadium show, and you pull a match for creative reasons and you don't have either Riddle or Seth Rollins appear on the show. That to me is strange. Because let's face it, again, I'm talking about Seth Rollins appearing on the show. I'm talking about Seth Rollins maybe having a mystery opponent. You do sympathize for Riddle. Look at what happened to this guy. He would be beyond frustrated. The plan was, and again, this is wild to think about. The plan was for Roman Reigns and WWE were going to do 3 stadium shows in a row. Remember, SummerSlam was meant to be the second stadium show. The first stadium show was meant to be Money in the Bank. That was meant to be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The main event of Money in the Bank was going to be Roman Reigns versus Riddle for the Undisputed Universal Championship. That was meant to be the main event of that show. Riddle was meant to main event a stadium show for the World Championship and what would have been the biggest match of his career. Unfortunately, Money in the Bank didn't sell that many tickets. They had to pivot, go back to a small arena, the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Roman Reigns was pulled from that show. Instead, they did the match on SmackDown that they had planned for the main event of Money in the Bank. They moved to a different thing. Now, you had Riddle, who's been carrying the load on Monday Night Raw with his tag team partner being injured as well. It was meant to be Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton in the main event of SummerSlam. That's not happened because Randy Orton is injured. He has a bad back. Riddle would have been in the main event of Money in the Bank inside of a stadium for the World Championship. Chances are he would have been involved in one of, if not the main event of SummerSlam, Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. He'd been involved in that. And what's actually happened, he didn't get his match at Money in the Bank inside of a stadium. He got it on SmackDown. He's not even on SummerSlam altogether now, and he's not even hurt. That would suck. That would suck on his part. Could they do a situation like MGT says? Maybe they can have Riddle come out all taped up to sell the injury. I suppose maybe they could. Maybe they could do a situation whereby Rollins sets up an open challenge or a mystery opponent. Out comes Riddle. They go, isn't he injured? And Rollins is about to attack him, and that's when Randy Orton makes his return, maybe. I don't know, but chances are Randy Orton might be out to the end of the year, so I think that's unlikely. M313 says this is probably now the point where they call Goldberg. I hope not. I hope not. Mick Thompson says Edge is going to return at SummerSlam. I guess that's a good point as well. It was quite surprising not to have Edge return Monday Night on Raw, and the vignettes pointed to Edge being involved in that. I still see Edge getting involved in that Judgment Day match at SummerSlam. It was surprising though. It was odd, considering that clearly it felt like they'd built up to that Monday Night Raw MSG appearance, and the fact that he didn't appear on that show maybe implies they might move to something else, but Edge to come back as the Rated R superstar and feud once again with Seth Rollins, I don't really know if that does anything for me. Their matches last year were fantastic. I really enjoyed them. SummerSlam last year, Edge versus Rollins was one of, if not the best match on the show. And they had a great match inside Hell in the Cell. They had a great match inside Madison Square Garden on SmackDown. They had fantastic chemistry and fantastic matches, as I mentioned. Seth Rollins has been doing consistently some of the best work on the WWE roster for the past 18 months. And he, at the very least, deserves to be on SummerSlam. And I think he will. I do think he will. I think we'll hear more about it as the week goes on. I'd be shocked if they don't shoot some kind of an angle on SmackDown, even though Rollins is a Raw guy. The draft brand split means nothing. I wouldn't be shocked if they move to if they do something on SmackDown that sets up a match the following night. Again, for me, I think it makes sense to do the angle that they did at WrestleMania with a similar kind of situation. Instead of McMahon picking the opponent, it's Triple H. But we'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, guys, look, nice short live show. I'm going to wrap it up there. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, SummerSlam Watch Along is back on Saturday, plus a post-show. Sunday, again, I am also thinking of doing a Ric Flair's Last Match Watch Along and a Ric Flair's Last Match post-show too. So there's plenty of content coming up. Impact Wrestling news video coming out in about an hour or so as well. We're going to be doing big things on the channel over the summer, so now is the time to subscribe and check everything out. And I'll speak with you again very soon. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.